Pro Football Playbook, presented by the Pigskin Podcast Network, your source for team news, draft needs, player profiles and rankings, full Senior Bowl, Combine, and NFL draft coverage, news, analysis, discussion. It's in the playbook. Now, here is your host, sports journalist Bill Alvstad, and featured analyst Keith Myers. Hey, NFL fans, welcome into the Pro Football Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers, and we're talking NFL draft prospects this week. We're up to the interior offensive line. Keith, one of your favorites.
Yeah, and I'm probably the only person who has ever said that. But those of you that know me or have listened to our other show know that the offensive line is kind of my thing, right? I don't know why. I don't know how that ever happened, but I have become that person who doesn't know who's carrying the ball, but I can tell you if the right guard pulled correctly and made it to the right spot. And somehow I became that guy. But you know what? That also means
is great. Yeah.
It also means that as we get closer to the draft, I become more popular because most draft analysts don't know what they're looking at. But they admit they don't know what they're looking at with the offensive line. So they come talk to me. They go, "Hey, who do you like?" And unfortunately for today, I think that there's not going to be a lot of surprises who I like, because I seem to like the guys that, the consensus out so there anyway. Likes. Yeah. So far, I also haven't done a tremendous amount of studying. I've done some.
I think that once we go through the bowls, the Senior Bowl, and then once we go through all the testing at the Combine, a lot of these interior guys, the athletic guys, the guys that can move in space, seem to rise up, and the plotting guys, the guys that are kind of space eaters in a phone booth kind of guys, seem to fall a little bit. And that's just seems to be the trend overall. And I don't see it being any.
Sometimes it's hard to tell that on tape, because if you've got a guy that does well in his space and you see him, he doesn't get beat in pass protection, and he doesn't, he can moves the pile a little bit, but he doesn't give up, where guys are getting penetration against the run and that kind of stuff. They look good. And then they go in and test, and you realize, wow, this guy's, it's not going to translate, because he's good only because of the level of competition, and he doesn't have the athleticism to hold up. And that's an unfortunate part of evaluating offensive line, is being good at college level doesn't mean it translates. And there have been people who have been better at the pro level than they ever were in college, because they didn't really know what they were doing. They were just trying to let their athleticism be the thing. And when they got to the pros, they actually got some real coaching, and they really learned their craft, and they learned the techniques that are required. And it's a much more technical thing than I think most fans realize. Absolutely.
So I figured today, instead of just kind of having a top 10 list, we just talk about some guys, some prospects. They're at the top. I've got, several, you've got a few. Let's pull them together and kind of see who we have lined up together, and see who each one of us brought in that might be a little different. I thought I'd start out. There's a couple of consensus guys that seem to be at the top. One's a center, one's a guard.
Yep.
Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M, 6'4", 325, seems to be one of the two consensus guys that are sitting there, possibly going in the first round of the 2022 draft. Do I have that right, Keith? Is that who you also have at the top, as well as?
I do. I think he's the best interior lineman in this class, at least so far, in my opinion. I think he's a guy that he's a road grader in the running game, just big body, long arms. I think he's going to translate really well. I've seen some people projecting him in the top 10, and I always have a hard time thinking a guard is going to go that high, because guards just aren't valued. But some guards are difference makers, and this guy looks like he could be a special player. I really think just all NFL offensive linemen are big, strong, powerful guys, and this guy will stand out amongst them as a big, strong, powerful guy.
And that really does pop when you watch the tape with this guy. It's like immediately he's got a real heavy seat about him, but he moves well. At the same time, he's like he gets really low, but he moves well side to side. He's violent. Like he's got violent hands. He likes to pancake people, push you out of the way. He excels in the ground game, obviously. Probably needs some tools to be a pass protector in the NFL, but that will come with time. But I think he's an immediate starter in the NFL for virtually almost any team, either on the right or the left side, depending on how he fits. And just an exceptional power and a ridiculous anchor. Like he's got the widest butt for a lineman that you've ever seen. Like he's just a wide body guy with not a lot of.
We're gonna have to work on your terminology.
Well, okay. The seat is just amazing. But that seat is that anchor, and it's crazy on him. Like it's really just noticeable that he gets down lower than any other offensive lineman.
And that's the part that's impressive because he is a big guy, even amongst offensive linemen. He's in 325 range, and a lot of guys playing guard right now are 305 to 310 to 315 are the bigger ones, and he's a good 10 pounds, 15 pounds bigger than all of them. But he gets his pads low. He keeps his weight back. He's not out over his knees. He's low. He gets leverage. He gets underneath guys. There's just a lot to like about his technique, on top of the fact that he is just a big, powerful human being.
And athletic. And he has the feet to kind of support that frame.
Yeah. And then the other guy that I know that you were going to jump in and talk about after is kind of the opposite guy. Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa. Is that him?
Yep. The opposite. Literally.
Yeah. So he is, he's only at 290 pounds. He's a center. Man, the guy gets out into space. You can pull him at center. He can get up and block the linebackers, safeties. Really moves well in space for a guy that size, and he is an absolute technician. There's no wasted steps. Does not get pushed off balance or moved, and his hand placement on where he puts his hands on shoulder, on chest.
Yes.
He's really active with his hands.
That I noticed about that is he's such a good technician that it looks like he plays heavier than he actually is.
It's true.
Because he's actually in the right spot all the time. His football intelligence is like top notch. He's the consensus best center in the draft. There's no question. Like between him and the second guy there's a considerable drop off. He's super athletic and fluid. He's going to test really well at the combine. That's why I think he rises up. He may even get drafted ahead of.
It's possible. Centers tend to go. The top center tends to go below the top guard, but
true.
But he's a technician. I do wonder if teams will be scared off by 290. And if you're going to play center in the NFL,
I did note that they have him now listed on the Iowa website at 295, and I was thinking I looked at the 290 weight as well.
I don't trust.
And true. And we'll find out at the combine. I guarantee you at the combine, he's up to like 300.
See, if he's up to 300 at the combine and he still tests well.
Exactly. And that's he's going to do everything he can to make sure that he's at 300 and he tests.
Yep. Then I don't think it'll be held against him, but he is slightly undersized. And I think that may, there may be a couple teams that question.
But he's such an athletic specimen, and he wants to hit you. Like he doesn't try. He's not a very physical player. He's not a finesse player.
He's a very physical player.
So he looks to finish, and if you watch him, dude, he loves to like pancake people. Like that's his specialty. He goes after.
He finishes a lot of blocks.
Stuff. So anyway, he was awarded the Remington Trophy last Thursday as part of the College Football Award Show, as well as being named today as an AP All-American First Team Center. So he's a guy I don't think that you can go wrong with in the draft. He's, if you want a sure thing and you're needing an interior lineman on your team, he's one of just a handful in this draft that is virtually kind of a guaranteed player.
Yeah,
I think
I would think so. I think he's going to be a fantastic player, and I would, if I was running a team, I'd draft him in the first round. Yeah, I wouldn't draft him high in the first round because he's a center.
What's high to you? Like mid-20s?
No, I was thinking
anything after 20.
I was thinking I would take him if you're picking 21 and you have a chance to draft either of the guys we've already talked about. Go get them because they're going to be an anchor. They're going to be a standout player on your offensive line. They're going to protect your quarterback. They're going to make holes for your running. Your offense will be better with them. And I know they're guards and centers, and people are going to roll their eyes at taking one in the first round, especially in the 20s, and not even waiting to like the late 20s or 30s. But these players are good. I know I wouldn't say that about most guards and centers. I think
these players are elite level that are worthy of that consideration.
Yeah. Linderbaum's probably the best center we've had come into the NFL in the last 2 or 3 years. And at least as a prospect, will he pan out? I can't guarantee that. No one can guarantee that. But everything that we see on tape, I think he is as sure a thing at center as you're going to find.
And I think Kenyon Green's as sure as guard as that you will find. And he's also had play at tackle, so he's got some scheme diversity. He's long enough to be able to do that, but I think he ideally fits inside. But
I think he's another sure bet. But he's a guy that he's athletic enough and he's got good enough feet that he would played college tackle. I don't think he's a pro tackle. I don't want to say, oh, there's scheme diversity. He could do that. But what it does is it speaks to his athleticism and his quick feet that most guys at 325 don't have. Yes. They just don't. And he does. So it's an interesting combination. Those are two guys that I think first round grades without question.
Yeah, but
probably the only two first round grades I've got for
Green did line up at left tackle for the Aggies all year, just so it's out there. The next guy that I had on my list was Ikem Ikwanu at a NC State, 6'4", 320. The thing about him is his versatility as well. He played both guard and tackle, and he's played some defensive line as well when he was a freshman. He's got a real nice dense frame. His strength and length is proportional. So he's really good in space and has really good power. One of the stronger blockers, natural run blockers in the draft, I think. He's got.
It's interesting.
Leads the Wolfpack with 63 pancake blocks and 18 knockdowns.
I have him as a tackle. I don't have him as an interior guy. I have him sticking.
He's 6'4". It's 320. So I mean, it's gonna come down to if his wingspan is as long as I think it is. He'll stick. He is long. He's long. He's a right tackle, and I think he's going to be a pretty good one. I've got him with a mid to late second round grade at right tackle. Interesting.
So yeah, and it's worth it for him to stick at tackle because they make more money. Tackles
so one of the notes that I noted on here is that he had the potential to be the Vera Tucker of the 2022 class. Means that he probably play NFL tackle in the NFL, but he's more likely to have a successful career inside at guard. And I wrote that after looking at some film and just looking at him as a prospect. But if he does have that length, the right tackle position is coveted in the NFL. And if you can play that and you can be successful at that, there's probably a chance that you're going to get penciled in there for sure.
I mean, back in the day, and to some degree, left tackle is still that coveted position on the line where they're the ones that get the big money. It's the quarterback's blind side and all of that. But go look at where the elite pass rushers come from from the defensive line. The right tackle has to be an elite player. The right tackle is an underappreciated position because the left tackle may have the quarterback's blind side, but the right tackle is the one typically playing against the best defensive lineman on the opposing team. And so he's a guy that I think will be coveted.
I agree. Because if he's like a if his arms are 34 and a half or 35, it's almost a lock that he's going to play right tackle in the NFL.
Yeah, but if they're 32 or 32 and a half, he's a guard. And that's going to be
and it shows up on film that he's long.
I think he's long. I think he's long. I think he's long enough to play it. I don't think I'm as high on him as you are. Like I said, I've got him mid second round, but
who's your next guy off the board?
Zion Johnson out of Boston College. So just another guy that's he's more of a technician, not quite as like powerful as the guys that we've been talking about, but it's not like he lacks functional core strength or anything like that. This is a guy that's going to be more of a do everything guard. He can pass block really well. He's got quick feet. He got active hands. I'd like to see his we call it a punch. It's basically when they come up and you strike the chest and try and slow the momentum of the defensive player a little bit. I like to see him be more aggressive with that. But I think overall his strength, his ability to stay in front of guys, he doesn't hold. He doesn't, he's not handsy in terms of grabbing on to guys. He doesn't lean on people. He just has good form and everything. And I think that he is a early round 2 guard that's you're gonna be able to stick him on your line and run.
And he could move up after the combine. He's one of those players because everything that you read, like the scouting reports, like if you go read 3 or 4 different scouting reports and you watch a little bit of film on this guy, the one word that keeps coming up over and over and over again with him is strength. Playing strength, strong, being, hitting hard at the point of attack, all that kind of stuff, competitive toughness. You just hear and see these things about
There's a lot of attitude. There's a lot of attitude that is required to play offensive line. And I think it's underappreciated at times by NFL teams that there are guys that just have that mean streak. And you need guys like that on your offensive line. They're tone setters. You got other people involved. You got to have some of that. This is a guy that has that.
Yes, but any demeanor and temperament that he brings, any NFL team covets.
And he does that without playing out of control. A lot of guys that do that, they play out of control.
He's a little narrow. He's a little narrow on his base, but that's it. That's the only thing that I really felt fault with him.
But that's part of why I think he's more of a pass blocker than a run blocker in the NFL. That's not a bad thing in today's NFL.
Well, especially when he has all those other attributes, he can make that up.
Absolutely. So I think he's the guy that's going to go for a little. I like him. He's a guy I would draft. Absolutely. I am curious where you have his teammate going.
Interesting.
Alec Lindstrom.
Yeah, let me see. I think I have him as being my 3rd offensive center off my board. So he would be in the mid to late on our list combined today.
I have him as a late round 3 guy. At this point. And I have Jarrett Patterson
ahead of him from Notre Dame at center, and he's my 3rd center. He's the brother of Chris Lindstrom, 2019 first round pick for the Atlanta Falcons. I just think that we just talked about a guy that is his teammate, right? Mm-hmm. And they are completely different players in every possible way. Like Alec Lindstrom is not strong. But he's a technician. He's a guy that's 6'3", 300 pounds that's going to come in and he's going to have to win by playing smart and being in the right spot and winning with his hands and being the leverage guy. But he's not going to, he's susceptible to a bull rush, to being overpowered by a really strong defensive tackle. So he's going to need some double team help. Mm-hmm. Quite possibly at the NFL level.
And that's why I have him as a late round 3, because I
don't even know if he's going to start in the NFL.
The thing is, he's going to come in and he's going to instantly struggle with a guy like Aaron Donald. Wait, everybody
Yes.
struggles with a guy like Aaron Donald.
Right.
So it's not, maybe that's
right,
not
but
the
that's
criteria.
the kind of player, though, that I had in mind when I was saying he is susceptible to that bull rush. He is.
But there are plenty of guys that he reminds me of that had very good NFL careers. Robbie Tobeck, if you want to really flash back to a long time ago, comes to mind as a guy who
who's the center that plays for the Rams right now? I can't remember his name.
That's a question I should have an answer to, but it's not coming to mind right away.
But he's kind of like that guy, 305 pounds, 6'3",
Yep. Doesn't have the tremendous functional strength, and core strength that you'd expect from an NFL offensive lineman, but really smart, always in position, gets his teammates in position, makes line calls, makes adjustments.
The thing that I think that pushes him down further than say the Zion Johnson, I know he's more of a guard guy, but is just going to be that functional strength and the fact that he's not athletic to make up for it. So he's not athletic and he doesn't have the functional strength. I think he goes later than the third round in this draft.
Well, then that's one of those things that's going to show up. I wasn't expecting he's not athletic, because I think he looks fairly athletic. Just he's more of a finesse player than a power.
He's not going to be as athletic as his brother.
That's fair, but his brother was also a first round pick. So
correct.
And we're thinking, third round. So we'll see. He's not. Maybe he's a fourth round pick, or somewhere in there. I do think he's a middle round guy, and he's interesting to me because he's one of those guys. I don't know if anyone will talk about him leading up, and then someone's going to draft him, and the fan base that drafts him is going to yawn, and he's not going to be talked about or considered as like, ooh, this guy that's going to, be a. He's just a pick, right? He's just a guy, and then I think he's going to end up sticking and having just a long career that no one really expected. There's something about him I like.
Interesting.
I just like the way that he goes about his business at center. And I
like a couple other prospects better than him.
Okay. I
like Jarrett Patterson out of Notre Dame, 6'5", 305, and I like Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas.
Really?
Better than Alec Lindstrom as an NFL college prospect.
Yeah. I mean, Patterson's interesting.
Interesting. He was the only starter remaining from 2020.
Stromberg from Arkansas?
Ricky Stromberg. It's a name that I think that you need to pay attention to. I know, but you need to pay attention to this guy because I think he's going to be a riser. I think he's going to end up rising up and going ahead of Lindstrom in the draft.
See, that's interesting because looking at the NFL mock draft database information, he at one point was listed as the 50th best prospect in the country, and he's currently on the consensus big board at 175. So he has just fallen.
That's on the fifth round, but I think that he's a riser.
Okay, we'll see. Because he's not really on my radar at all. But
and he's a junior, so he could go back for his senior year. They haven't declared yet, so we'll see.
Patterson out of Notre Dame, I think, is really interesting because he's a guy that at one point people were like, hey, this is a first round pick. He's a guy that's going to be like, one of those guys, and then he just.
Yeah, well, he got hurt. He got hurt at the end of 2020, and then the 2 or 3 other Notre Dame linemen were drafted in the NFL draft, and he just kind of got forgotten a little bit. And then this year, he's really kind of come into his own. He's taken a leadership role at Notre Dame. He's a captain, not only of the line but of the team. And I just think that he's like a solid player. 6'5", 305. He's got a frame to add another 10 pounds if he needs to, depending on the scheme that he's asked to play in.
You don't think that his feet are a little slow?
He's not as athletic as Linderbaum, but nobody is.
Well, that's true.
But he is not. He's not like a special center, but he's going to be a guy that can come in and play for you for 8 years and be solid for you.
And he may very well. The one thing that gives me pause with him is there are plays where I see his feet stop. And he's like, okay, I'm in position, and his feet stop moving. And then he gets pushed and he ends up out of position because the guy he's blocking, their feet aren't stopped. So they keep moving, and he gets his feet and he stops. And that's coachable. That's something you can get out of. But this is a guy that's been there. He's from a program that produces a lot of offensive linemen that are well coached. So correct. I have concerns. So we'll see.
I mean, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that dominating feature about him, or dominating power, or that zeal to like pancake somebody. Those are the concerns. That's the mentality aspect of his game is the concerning part. Like, does he want to compete at the highest level and dominate?
Is he too nice of a guy? I think he wants to, but
that's the question, Keith.
Is he too nice of a guy in terms of who he is to be a dominant NFL offensive lineman? And again, that's not as necessary as a center. You need that at guard. Your guard has to have that mean streak. Your center, you actually want to be smart. I mean, there's a lot that of getting the assignments right. When teams come up and they bring 7 guys, and you've got 5 offensive linemen and a running back. That's 6 people to block 7 guys, which means somebody's going to come and block. So you have to choose which one that's going to be, and all of those different calls and all of that stuff that has to be figured out, decided on, and communicated. And you have 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds to do it. You need someone who's pretty dang smart to play center at the NFL level, and he's a guy that's going to fit that. He's a guy that you can trust to come in and be that guy.
So I want to talk about
physically he's going to hold up. I
want to talk about a polarizing prospect. I want to talk about a guy that maybe you can't trust.
Okay.
At offensive guard. Wonder if you can guess the one I'm talking about.
Ed Ingram from LSU.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where do you have him?
I've got him sitting at the beginning of round 3.
I've got him as my sixth best guard prospect, but I thought he was worth an interesting conversation.
He's a guy that physically and some of his tape, he looks like he's a guy that should be drafted way earlier than he will be.
Yeah. I mean, if you're an NFL team looking to inject life into your ground game, then this guy could be your guy. I mean, Tyron Davis-Price grabbed the headlines when he ran for 287 yards and 3 touchdowns rushing against Florida, but it was Ingram who was out there clearing those lanes.
Yeah.
For Davis to bust through.
Where did they run? All over and over and over again. It was right between the gap between him and the center. Up the gut, because he was pushing people back, and not just pushing back a defensive tackle, but pushing him back hard enough that he was also blocking a linebacker who was trying to get around and into a gap. And so he was just crushing people.
Yeah. I mean, the weight transfer in the hands and the core strength and all that stuff just all line up. Mm-hmm. And you just got to wonder where he's at, in his head and off-field stuff. That's the problem. And the penalties. I think he's a guy that I would. You asked about trust.
Yeah,
that's the hard part. The penalties is a real big red flag when you combine the off-field stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so, the talent's there. This is the part of doing this that I don't like. The talent is there. If we were just judging talent,
and we don't have access to like interviews and all that stuff.
Not at all. And that's one of the things that happens every year is there are guys that we're like, there's this off-field stuff. So we push them down in rankings, and then they go in the, way before we expect. And then it turns out teams interviewed him and they're like, no, this isn't what you think. And this was a player that, he got arrested. And so that's why everyone's pushing him down, but he got arrested for doing stuff when he was homeless. And then he got, whatever. And pick a story. There's so many of them. Every team's got 2 or 3. And they're actually like a really upstanding dude. Now that they
or that part of their life gives them an edge and an appreciation for what they have.
Yeah,
you just never know.
There's just always that story. But then there's all the guys that have come in and washed out because they can't stay out of trouble and they can't whatever. So where does this guy go, right? Which direction is he? Is he a guy that's going to wash out because of the stupidity of the off-field stuff, or is he a guy who's got his act together and has learned to appreciate what he's got and to really rise above that? If he's the former, it's going to be a waste of a draft pick. If he's the latter, you're going to be really, really happy with this player.
So do you have one or two other prospects to talk about before we get out of here?
The only one that I was looking at that I was kind of interested in is Logan Brus out of Wisconsin. And again, for me, there are two schools that I look at. They're kind of the pipeline of offensive line talent to the NFL. And it's Wisconsin and Stanford. And if you need an offensive lineman and you don't have any idea how to grade an offensive lineman, go get someone from Wisconsin or Stanford, because I guarantee you they will be extremely well coached. They will be disciplined. They will do their job. And that can be a plus and a minus. Stanford offensive linemen, and to some degree Wisconsin, tend to be guys that they are what they are because they've been coached to their peak, their ceiling in college. But I see Brus as a guy that, yeah, he does a lot of things right. It's just really hard to find a mistake. Yeah. I don't see one. And I got to tell you, if you get an offensive lineman that doesn't make mistakes and just does his job well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, right. Where you've got an above average football smart player and intelligence, plays with a nasty streak, solid character and work ethic, but isn't super athletic. He's not super quick footed. So you kind of worry about some of the edge guys and so forth at the NFL level. But here's a guy that could come in and be a really nice interior prospect for you and also excel on special teams and all that kind of stuff. So this might be not a guy that you're drafting to start immediately for your line, but you're looking to fill out your depth.
Yeah. But I'm just telling you, like, there's something about Wisconsin and Stanford guys. They are so well coached on their offensive line. You can't go wrong with a guy from either school. And Brus is the guy that this year I look at and I'm like, you know what? If I needed a guard and I needed someone who could come in and just, if my offensive line is terrible and I need a guy that's going to be a rookie on a rookie deal and cheap and all of that, but can be steady and be a stabilizing force for all the chaos around him, Brus looks like a guy that I believe I could.
So it's like a perfect 5th, 6th round guy. It's a guy that you definitely want to get on your team. You're not going to allow him to wait until the 7th round to be a priority free agent. You're going to
no. You
get him early.
Get him then. You'd want to end around 4, round 5. That's more of where I'm thinking. But not a guy that you're expecting to come in and be a Pro Bowler, but a guy that you can depend on if you need him. Those guys are interesting to me. And I know people listening to this are like, this guy likes really uninteresting people.
Well, and you get a guy like that in the 5th round that has a nasty streak, that's willing to work hard. It really does lift up your entire roster when you have guys like that.
And go look at every single NFL team at their offensive line. The guys that start, the guys that are there week in and week out and play well. And you're going to find that 5th or 6th round guy that wasn't really well thought of, but they've got both a nasty streak and they don't make mistakes and they're technical in terms of the way they do things. You're going to find that guy on every team. Those guys have value. And Brus looks like he's going to be that guy in this year's class, my opinion. Yeah. So
interesting. Yeah, I had Latacius Smith out of Virginia Tech on my list. At 6'3", 320. I've got
if he's 220, he's not a guard.
No, but I've got him as, in the positional ranking, in the mid 20s or so. But I thought he was a guy that had the traits that I'm looking for guys that might rise up a little bit on big boards and go a little earlier in the draft. Just because I think when you get past the kind of players that we're talking about now, it really does drop off. And so there's still going to be demand and need for teams to have guys. And so some of these...
There's a couple of really good guys at the very top of this list. And then there's a drop. And then there's a group of guys in the middle. And then there's another big shelf where there's just a big drop before thing. It's not a deep class where you're going to find 10, 12 NFL caliber players at the interior line. It's not one of those classes. We missed someone.
Oh yeah.
I was looking back at some of my notes. I think we missed Thayer Munford from Ohio State.
Yeah.
6'6", 220. Big, powerful guy. Like I just skipped over him.
Let me see if he's on my list anywhere. I think I skipped him too. I think I ended up I wrote a couple notes on Jackson Kirkland out of Washington and then realized that I was probably looking at a left tackle prospect in the NFL and stopped writing about him.
I've got him at tackle as well. I don't have him in the interior. If a team drafts him with the idea that they're going to move him inside, I think they're making a mistake. He may not. Yeah, even if he doesn't stick as a starting left tackle, he's a swing tackle that can play both positions and be that key third tackle on your roster. If you're drafting him to be guard, I think you're wasting a resource.
Interesting. So where do you have Mumford going? Or did you even really look?
No, I have him late round 2. Run blocker, just he's a road grader. He's not Kenyon Green, but he's a road grader, and I think that there's a lot of value in a guy like him that you can come in and he has the potential to dominate the guy in front of him. Sweet. Is he gonna be a guy that you want to pull and lead block on the outside? I don't think so. But if you're an inside zone team.
Or power team. Yeah.
You're running up the middle a lot, and you need someone that's going to take the guy in front of you and just push them back to create a hole. Mumford's the guy that I think you can trust.
Sweet. All right. Coming up, we have got a look at tackles. So we're going to do offensive tackles in our next NFL draft show.
It is an interesting class with the offensive tackles. We'll just tease it at that. It's an interesting class, and if you want to know what I mean, you're going to have to tune in. So
I'll definitely be there.
I was talking to the listeners. I know you're going to be there, Bill.
So what else? What else coming up? So next week we'll do 2 shows. I think we'll do an NFL show. We'll get you all caught up on the division races, where everyone's at as we head towards the playoffs. We've had some 4 games left in the season for everyone.
We've got some interesting developments in terms of where some of the teams are going. We've got a couple of teams that looked like guaranteed playoff teams early on that seem to have just fallen apart.
Yeah, and it seems like the Vikings are actually moving up and doing quite well now because they were quite on the border there.
Well, they lost to the Lions, so
and now the COVID-19 thing. There's a huge COVID-19 breakout in the league that's causing 30, 40 players now are on the list, including 19, I think, on one team.
14 on the Browns is what I heard.
19 on the Rams.
Yeah.
Which is just absurd,
And they've got an important game. They're playing a Seattle team this week that's 1-2 straight and is trying to get back into the race. And this is, they have the potential to basically bury a division rival. They want that, but
absolutely
19 players out, including their star cornerback, Jalen Ramsey. That's going to be a rough situation.
And they need 2 negative tests by Saturday to be able to play.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. It's a couple of days here, we'll know. All right. Find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at Alvstad NFL. The show is at PF_playbook on Twitter, and Pro Football Playbook.co is the website. You can find us on your favorite podcast app and YouTube. We've got our own YouTube channel. If you just look up Pro Football Playbook on YouTube, you will find all of our content there, and make sure you hit the subscribe button, which would be awesome, so we can get some followers and get some more content out there for you guys. So until next time, we'll see you.
Thanks for listening to the Pro Football Playbook Podcast. Follow Keith at Myers NFL. Bill is at Alvstad NFL. The show is at PF_Playbook. Listen and subscribe on your favorite podcast app or YouTube, and at our website, profootballplaybook.co.